Hi everyone, I'm Hannah. For this week's online art club, we will be looking at the ways that water is portrayed in the Palmer's collection. Water is a versatile matter to both depict and create with in art. It has inspired artistic subject matter throughout the world in different ways. Let's look at some examples to get an idea of the vast creativity that can be channeled through different themes relating to water. One obvious relationship between water and art is the medium of watercolor paint, which is very popular and easy to use. These works illustrate the different properties and applications of watercolor that can result in either dense, opaque colors or more translucent shades. This is achieved through the amount of water that is mixed with the pigment. Also, varying the amount of pressure you use while applying the paint can result in different qualities of the surface, such as the visible brush strokes that you see here. With experimentation and practice, you can use watercolor to create a wide variety of artistic styles and expressions. Water-based paint isn't the only way that water is included in the art world. In the Palmer's collection, we can find works that depict water in very different ways. Sometimes, water appears to look like a solid shape. This emphasizes the force, power, and presence that water can have. The detail is simplified in this particular work, but the boldness is not. Artworks that show an abstract representation of water can be very interesting. This piece by Henry Pearson is one of our favorites, depicting a sense of flow and movement like water using bold colors and lines. The other work, by Isabella Markel, doesn't use any color at all to represent water. Instead, the overhead aerial view defines the river by the objects in and around it. The clear boat shapes and the dock tell us what we're seeing. Water is often depicted as part of a larger landscape scene. Artists can use it to convey atmosphere or mood. Its presence can add a sense of tranquility, peace, and stillness. In other scenes, though, it may portray action, energy, or movement. In these works, the water is depicted as a powerful, energetic force. Notice how the artist created waves and choppy waters by using shorter brushstrokes and a combination of different colors. It's so interesting to see how so many different artists have responded differently to the idea of water. Do any of these pieces catch your attention or spark your interest? What do you think you'll do with all the possibilities of water? Will you paint water, or will you paint with water, or both? You can take it a million different ways. I'm choosing to use watercolor for my project. So this week was actually super fun for me because watercolor is my all-time favorite medium to use. I just made a really simple landscape-esque abstract painting with this watercolor this week. I started out by sketching a little oval in the middle to make like a body of water, I guess a lake, and I got some dark green and made some abstract like land masses around it, and on the edge of the water I painted these bright like mountain rock things just so that I could play with the reflections in the water beneath them. And I think it turned out really well. It is really simple and very like just geometric, but the way that the water dried makes it look super good and super reflective, and the water is blue and glassy and like clear. I don't know, I just think it looks really good and it was super fun to do.
Hi everyone. For the prompt this week of using water, I decided to take my inspiration from some of the landscape paintings that we looked at earlier in this video. Instead of using paint, I used my favorite material of collage and cut out some different paper pieces to show the idea of a river on my page. I looked at some reference photos, so it's good to look online and find some pictures, and that way that can help you get the shape of your water as you're cutting it out or painting it on your page. Then I cut out some little pieces of paper to do some grasses, and I also knew that I wanted this picture to be an autumnal scene, so I wanted to have all the beautiful colors of fall that we have outside right now. So I filled the background with a bunch of big fields of color that were in those sort of autumn colors, and those are going to be like the big blocks of trees behind the water's edge. Then I glued all my pieces down, trying my best to remember where they went, and also decided to add a strip of green at the bottom there to show sort of like there was a grass in between the water's edge and the tree line. After I glued that down, I thought about how to render the water and make it look like it was water instead of just being a sheet of water. I wanted to add some texture. So I got out some markers and filled in some areas that I didn't fill in with the paper and added some details to the trees. And then I decided to start thinking about how I wanted to draw the water. And when I looked at reference images of pictures of water, especially in the fall, the main thing that jumped out to me was the very strong reflections in the water. So I decided to draw the reflections in the water so that it really looked like it was this fall scene and that water was really moving and active. So I drew a mirror image of the colors above. So I tried to look at what was in the tree line and then kind of do a mirror image in the water. And I was very careful to make sure all my lines went in sort of the same direction, these short little lines going in the same direction to give this sense that the water is moving and that it's all moving in the same direction. Unfortunately, my video got cut off while I was working on it, so my final additions were not caught on video, but what you'll see here is that I just continued to add more small, quick little lines going in the same direction in light blue and dark blue and white to give the sense that there was a sky back behind that tree line.
I thought that this was a really fun and unique prompt, just thinking about the different ways that water can be portrayed and the different materials that you can use to do that. I decided to do a drawing using just markers and pencils. Here I'm just sketching out my lines with a pencil, and I'm going to go in with some Prismacolor markers. I used Henry Pearson as inspiration for this piece, and his works, even though they're not technically supposed to represent water, they do think a lot about movement, and I think that that's really interesting. And I also just really love making drawings like these. I've done a few over the past couple of months, and they're really fun. They're really relaxing, and I feel like you have a lot of freedom with what you're doing. I kind of just make it up as I go along. I don't have a really specific detailed plan as to what colors I'm going to use or where the lines are going to go. I kind of just follow the lines and see what happens with them. So they end up looking a lot different in my mind, and I don't really know what to expect. I think that this also is a really interesting way to represent water. It reminds me of waves in the ocean, kind of, and the different colors of the ocean. The greens could be seaweed, the grays could be rocks or sand, and then the different blues that are in the ocean, how all of bodies of water are kind of different colors. So I just tried to pick a really wide range of different blues and greens. I really liked the way the colors turned out. I thought it was really fun. Whenever I do drawings like this, they usually take me a while, but it's so relaxing when I do them and I'm not really thinking about it. It's just kind of mindless and just moving my pen across the paper, just kind of like water moving. And after I colored it all in with the markers, I just go in with a black microliner pen and kind of just make those lines a little bit more distinguishable. And I think it looks really good after I go in and outline all of the different lines with the pen. It kind of separates it a little, but you can also do this without outlining. This is a really prompt that you can just kind of do whatever you want with it and see what happens.
You will need paper, watercolor paints, brushes, a cup of water, and salt for this abstract watercolor painting. First, put water on your paper with a big brush. I'm going to use wet on wet style. Draw any shapes with watercolors. This is an abstract painting, so paint it in your own unique style. You can choose whatever color you want. I chose the green, brown, and blue colors. My inspiration for today is my dream last night, which was about the small river in the woods. If you finish your painting, place salt on wet areas. Please make sure it is wet enough for the salt to work. I'm using sea salt though. You can use any sort of salt you have. And then we will wait for about 20 minutes until salt melts and the watercolors dry. While waiting, if you are still not really convinced that you are going to get a lot of action from salt, you can sprinkle more salt on it. Melted salt has been changed like snowflakes. Now everything has completely dried. If you do not like unmelted salt on your paper, you can carefully remove it using a tissue. But I'm really happy how it turned out.
Thank you so much for watching and doing art with us. We can't wait to see what you create. Show us your artwork with the hashtag #PalmerOnlineArtClub. We'll see you next time for another look into the Palmer's collection.